Networking is networking, man.
Networking and networking. Welcome to Player Driven Live. It is January 29th. I am here with Colin. Colin, happy Thursday. How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I finished off a my second adult Lego build this week where it's like the giant Batman the animated series wall art that actually got for my first sale gift from Brian Rogers at Mind Game. And so that was in 2 years ago. So that one sat in my garage for a long time, but I finally got the urge to finish it off after my Starry Night. I was like, I really enjoy building these art pieces. So I just built another one. And yeah, just coincides with our 2 year anniversary at Mind Games. So just happy birthday to ourselves as of next week. Congrats to us. We made it. We survived 2 years. And yeah, that's what's going on with me this week, man. How about you?
Busy week. We had our first Player Driven workshop yesterday, yeah, and we had about 50% attendance rate, which was great. And we said that 60% of the people that did show up stayed for the whole thing. So we had a lot of this was sponsored by App Follow. So first I'll say thank you, App Follow. But we had two people, one person from Stillfront and one person from a studio called Easy Brain. They're both player experience. They work on kind of the management of customer support. They just shared their tips and tricks, how they're really using AI in a day-to-day basis. And it's cool to hear how they're being told to use AI and they're pushing back, but they're starting to dabble with it in like big data sets, being able to say, hey, here's a big data set. What's the sentiment around here? What are the top themes that we're seeing? And like in practice, again, I know we have the AI thing, but like being able to see how people in the industry are actually utilizing the tools today is something that I really find interesting. And we got a lot of engagement in the comments of the webinar. So that was super cool to be able to see.
Oh wow. Well, do we put a hashtag at the end you said you got to check out? I think someone made that joke at me earlier this week when I like they were claiming agree with influencer Colin. I was like, I could go no.
Yeah,
But
you're an influencer now. You hit 10,000 followers on LinkedIn.
oh,
Did you get like a mug or something? Did they send you like a thank you
nothing.
prize?
Nothing. I get nothing. It's okay. Just keep grinding on the content train. At some point, I will. Well, no. It's funny. I saw that someone was like, "Oh, congrats!" And I look at, I knew him from when I was at Twitch, and I looked Bill Young, so I guess I'll call him out Bill. And I was like, "I'm only 25,000 away from you." Just like, oh man, online man. But hey, it's cool.
Do you
I thought it was.
I was thinking about you and your patch notes because I'm curious on, they're becoming longer, and I made a joke about that last week, but they're full of great information. But the question is, how many hours a week are you dedicating to patch notes? And did you get to
Oh
this
my
point where you're like,
gosh.
oh God, how am I going to scale this?
That is a great question, man. I used to do these. If you look at the beginning of these, they were much shorter and much more to the like very specific. Like Gabe does this, and it kind of just that was it. And those probably took me like an afternoon on a day of the week. Now I literally plan my day plan my week where I actually spend my evenings mostly writing these. So I will spend 3 hours or so a night. So I think it comes up to being like 12 hours. That includes like data analysis. I generally do myself, some support from the team. Shout out to the team. Um, Writing, editing, creating the visuals, humming and hawing on my takes, all that. That just doesn't happen fast. But yeah, I just carve out the time in the evening. So less less other forms of content crushing, more spent time on this. I would say it's kind of what I'm doing now.
If you, as an adult male at this point in your life, how many hours a day or a week are you actually playing video games since we are in this industry?
I generally try to carve out like an hour to two. So like the floor for me is every night with my little oldest one. He is 6. He does he does his homework, eats dinner, does his bath, and then we end the night with whatever the time remains between how fast can you get done through all those things. So that's the carrot to when he has to go to bed. And we currently are playing Lego Star Wars. So I'll sit down, we do co-op Lego Star Wars, we play that. So for sure play that game right now at least an hour a day. So that is my gaming floor. Every day I will play at least 1 hour. So if I were to take a survey and market research, adding up all the hours a week, I pass the threshold of being a core gamer, which I think is silly. It's like, do you play more than 4 hours a week? I'm like, well, that's nothing. Yeah, sure,
I
I do. And then at nights especially the weekends is like when I do my gaming, right? So weekdays, not so less so weekends, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That's when I do my gaming, which is, I'll sit down with my Steam Deck and play like Dispatch. Right now I'm in a lull. I don't really feel a drive to play core games right now. I'm like, I'm just kind of waiting until I'm not sorry, I'm not into Resident Evil, not into that franchise. Not my jam. It'll do very well, but that's not my. It's not my thing. So I'm kind of waiting on. I was really hopeful that Bond is coming out in March, but now I'm just deeply saddened that it's not coming out until May, the same week and 2 day window as Lego Batman. So we're gonna have a real conflict in the house in terms of what's getting played. I don't want to play Lego Batman. I want to play Bond and get to that whole game, but first world problems, right? So marathon is on my mind. Like, all right, March marathon. I swore off shooters. I think I've talked about it on the show because I'm not old enough to get good, and or sorry, I don't have enough time to get good, and I don't like losing every match, so I'm indifferent to shooters. But I will definitely pick up Bungie's game and give it a go. So I'm excited about that as an old school Destiny guy.
A few
And
things you said there, right? Like one, I don't play games with my son after dinner time, but I love your strategy because after dinner time, my kids become so slow, and it's like, come on, you got to get through this stuff. You got to get through this. I love how you're like, all right, well, the quicker you get through this, the more reward there is at the end of it, right? You're like motivating them to move quicker, and that's a strategy I want to kind of figure out how I can implement because that would be a fight with my wife. But I do like that idea.
teaches them time management. I'm like, hey, you guys have this much time. You manage how you do your time. I'm just here to let you know there's a carrot at the end of it. That's what I would say to that, Greg.
Yeah,
Carrots.
and bigger is marathon. I'm with you, man. The more, first of all, my YouTube now is drip feeding me marathon content released by Bungie. So like, it's coming. So for anyone Bungie that ever watches this, if you want some play testers, you want us to post some content on it, hook us up. We will be playing tons of marathon. I am excited about it. I have convinced my friends to play it, and I am ready to go. I need a Bungie shooter in my life.
Nice. Yeah, I'm excited. Gosh, if I were to rank the Bungie shooters in some the Mount Rushmore for Bungie games to me is Halo, Halo 2, Halo Reach, and Destiny 2. Right? Those are the kind of big ones. Destiny. And actually, let me edit that. Actually, the best Bungie of the Destiny is the specific DLC, the Taken King. That's the best one. So that will be very specific. That's the best in my opinion of all the ones I played. So Taken King, when you finally take down orcs, great DLC expansion. So that was like best era of Bungie or Destiny in my opinion. So that would be my ranking of the titles. My personal favorite Halo for multiplayer is Halo 1 because you get the pistol, and I think it's the best game or weapon in any shooter ever. And the fact they never put it back in the game always infuriates me. And then, and Blood Gulch is the best level. Shout out to Red vs. Blue for those old enough to have watched that stuff. And then my favorite campaign out of the Destiny is going to then go Reach. Reach is the best campaign. So Reach is a great campaign. And Halo 1 just has all the nostalgia for me. So, am I there when they come out with Combat Evolved on the PlayStation remastered and maybe remade in some like fashion for the PlayStation? 1000% playing that game
I think
on my
you're.
place.
I think often overlooked is ODST. I think ODST deserves a place at the top. I feel like it took a grittier look at it. I think it had great gameplay. I think it was a chance they took. I don't think they nailed it, but I think the game itself was an excellent game, just not part of the core
Yeah,
Halo vibes.
yeah. No, look, it's sad to me that Bungie doesn't make Halo games anymore. That's what's a bummer to me. But it is what it is, and let's hope let's hope that they like don't screw up Halo more than they have at Microsoft. Although I will say Halo Infinite is not as bad of a game as people say. The multiplayer is not great, but the campaign's not bad. I like that's the best post Bungie Halo game in my opinion. But again, there's lots of low bars on that one. Because
I'll be wild here and say I do think Infinite was a great game. I think they did a really good job at it. I think clearly it lacked in biomes. It clearly lacked in it, but the idea that they were going for, I think they nailed it pretty well. The world could have been more living. I think if they would have built onto it like the plan was, it could have been great. I think it just once the community, and let's talk about this, right? Once the community kind of has a backlash against you, it's hard to recover from that. And before we jump into that, right, I think 343 has had an issue with that. I mean, I think the Master Chief Collection launch was one of the worst launches of video game history. Just, the servers were down, not for a day, not for a week, more than a month, where like you just couldn't connect. And like anyone who ever played a Halo in their life was craving that day when it launched. They took days off of work to be able to play all this stuff. And it's just like they couldn't get it working, and they couldn't get it working. And building on that, right? We have new games that are still coming out that just aren't working, right? And let's talk about the new market love of Highguard. Highguard has been, when I say love, right, it's rhetorically, but I think it got it's in a tough spot, right? So what's new with Highguard this week?
Geez, where do we even start with that one? I've been pretty vocal on LinkedIn on this one. I feel like I have, I think I've been subtweeted in some people's posts of like, I don't have, I am on the hate side of this. And let's start off at the beginning. Like, I think over a little over before it launched, I posted a thing where I was like, who cares about this game? There's no interest. Like, there's just no interest in this game. Like, it's dead on arrival. There's no heat. But I will then kind of hedge a bit and say, can Jeff Keighley make a game exists out of just force of will as an interesting thought exercise? Let's see what happens. Fast forward, the answer is no. But so let's start with him and like because I think and it's not him. So everyone that's out there saying did he take a cut? I'll generally believe the commentary that I got. Like no, he wouldn't do that. He doesn't need to. And I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. He doesn't need to, right? So what's the point for him, right? He probably just generally liked the game. People have tastes. Other people might disagree with those tastes. Let's leave it there. So I think he was just doing his best to help him out because I think he would even admit that the Game Awards thing probably didn't go off as he thought it would, which is like visceral, like, what is this, right? And unfairly so, probably. And jump in, Greg. Like, I think people left the Game Awards expecting to see Half Life 3 announced, or they're expecting to see an updated Elder Scrolls or something like to blow their socks off. And what they got was, what they called a clone shooter that looked too much like Overwatch in title included, right? Overwatch High Guard. That was a joke, right? So tough place to start, right?
So there's a few things, right? First of all, to what you're saying about Jeff, right? I think he just truly loved the game, right? At the end of the day, he's a gamer, and if he's excited about something, he's going to want to do it. Um, I forgot another point you mentioned there. I wanted to kind of talk.
Oh, I was gonna say the Game Awards. Like they just got off on the raw, like just got put in a weird spot, and I think he was just trying to do right by just course correcting as much as he could. So he's hyping it up on Twitter and like X and other platforms he's on. He's like, "Watch out, this game's coming." And I think the thing he took down that's gonna live for him forever as a meme tied to Jeff, other than "Welcome to High Guard." If you watch Donkey's video, I'm like, that's a meme now. But like the other one is the in 20 or 48 hours he did the Jurassic Park meme where it's like you'll come back for an apology or you'll be thanking me or whatever. um
Mhm.
yeah. And I've seen that floated around everywhere in regards to this game and him. So he again, I think he just generally cared and liked the game. So awesome to him, and he was just trying to do his best to kind of put a spotlight on an indie studio. Like, let's be clear, it's an indie studio, right? Yeah, it's the team that made Apex, but they're not EA, right? They're not. It's not the team at EA who made Apex that's now making the next thing. That team mostly went to make Battlefield 6 and sold a gajillion copies. This is the people that left EA to go do something independent of EA to try their hat at making, people claim like a Titanfall spiritual successor sort of thing, right? So that was the aim of this game, indie studio. And so if you look at it that way, he was just doing his best to support the indie, right? So shout out, good for Jeff.
How do you temper community expectations, right? To your point, people were like, "Oh, is this Halo or Half Life 3?" Right? Like, we've been saying that for years. At some point, you know what? Let's stop talking about Half Life 3, and if it comes, great. It'll never happen. I get that, but like, people were expecting Half Life 3, and they got High Guard, and I think immediately that puts a pin in people. Says, "Screw this game. This isn't what I wanted it to be." Like, how's I don't know. If
Yeah.
you're Jeff Keighley, even before that comes out, do you set that expectation? Be like, hey, this is not Half Life 3. Like, don't get this excited because at the same time, you want those viewers, right? I want you to stay till the very end of my presentation. And the only way to get you to stay there is if you think it's Half Life 3 and it's not.
I think people would have been there anyways. So sure, it's a bit. He never promised anything. Let's be clear. Like the only thing he teased out pretty aggressively himself, with the thing in the desert was Divinity, and it was right. People figured it out. They got what they were expecting. Boom, and that was the biggest thing coming out of the Game Awards. So like, at the end of the day, like people could speculate and be disappointed, but he didn't do anything to not have Half-Life 3. Who knows if Half-Life 3 even exists? This is all just internet rumors and gossip. And like it's the Bigfoot of gaming right there with like a whole bunch of other IP that, will it see another day in the sun? Who knows? But it's like Bigfoot now. It's like we see Bigfoot, we theorize about Bigfoot and UFOs, and they may or may not exist. Who knows? But like I will go to like just kind of taking a step back. So like I think what I said on this one, which I very fairly firmly stand on, is like you can't growth hack community, which is kind of what I feel like they tried to do. And so, like my first major lesson to everyone that's listening to this, like forget the Apex Legends case study. Let's just put it in the memory hole. For a lot of reasons. One, there's like this romanticizing that this small little game was able to show up shadow drop and like boom off the races with just a ton of fanfare from the community. I'll tell you now because I'm so far removed from my days on Twitch. They paid us 7 figures just for one day of promotion then they bought a bunch of content creators to play their game. And how are they able to do this small little underdog? Because they're EA. Because they're a multi-billion dollar company with a war chest and marketing dollars, which is what it all boils down to. They could buy that attention on that day. They could black out Twitch, is what they basically did. That was a strategy. Black out Twitch. We will own this entire platform because we can afford to do so at that time. So then you ask, well, wasn't that what they were trying to do? Yeah, but in 2026, where the price to black out Twitch is so much higher, they didn't black out Twitch. What they did is they bought Loaded's roster, which if Loaded, if you don't know, is a content creator agency that represents a lot of the kind of bigger and older kind of Twitch creators. Not knock on them, but just they've been on Twitch for a long time. Lyric, Shroud, Summon at 1G, right? These kind of like old school but big still Twitch people. They bought them all. And that's a good strategy. You should, partner with content creators, do whatever it means to then get them to play your game at launch. I think that's a sound true, and that's like what they did. But like, did they own Twitch? No, because they couldn't afford to own Twitch because Twitch is too expensive to own in the modern economy now. So like when I say forget the Apex case study, I really mean just like you cannot replicate that unless you just have a insane war chest of money, right? And I don't think an indie studio is going to have that insane war chest of money, which is my first ding on their marketing strategy. It's like it was never going to work. You needed to do the opposite, build organic community kind of momentum. And I will just end on Arc Raiders is a really good example. They too, basically an independent studio. Granted, they released the finals. So they had some momentum and goodwill built behind them. And they announced Arc Raiders years ago. Like years ago. When the finals came out, people thought it was going to be Arc Raiders. It wasn't Arc Raiders. Like, oh, they just gave us another game because they were still making Arc Raiders. But like fast forward to the playtest, which is what this game didn't do. They put the game out in like late April, May. They're like, play our game, saw a huge upswing in momentum and interest, went dark for a very long time, then came back in early October after Battlefield 6 was out for a little over a week, and then dropped another playtest and said, "Come buy our game." And then game comes off the races. Rest is history. It's a wildly successful IP launch. But like, what did they do? They did the hard work of building community and momentum. They gave people access to the game. I'll end on this. Like I saw the quote in Chris String's article, and then like the quote where the creators of the people behind the studio were like, "Give the people the sticks" or something like that. Like let them play the game. Well, they didn't let them play the game. Like not in the way that you need to let people play the game in 2026. They let people play the game in the way they thought they should play the game if it was still 2019. But we're not in 2019. We're in 2026.
Yeah, and I would challenge it, and I'm not going to get too deep into it. That you can still growth hack a community. It just can't be done with the same playbook that you did a few years ago, right? And the point being, and this will be phase two of Highguard, and we won't hammer it home because it's clearly not going to live up to what we all, who knows what we thought, but like okay, the premiere at the Game Awards or some whatever, right? That was a flop. But all of a sudden, you have eyeballs on this game. Like, what is this? Why is this so much commotion? Why is this happening? Right. So Monday came around, and I convinced all my friends to download it. Luckily, it's a 2 GB download. Thank you, Xbox, and thank you for making it quick to download. And we launch, and you can't even play the tutorial. Like it's broken. And we're looking online, and like there's no announcement from there. My buddy finds a YouTube video by one of your creators, right, that you're talking about, that says it is completely broken right now. The fact that the studio didn't come out and say, hey, we're having some problems right now, right? Like That to me is the problem, right? Like, first of all, let's not forget there's a whole bunch of talented people that are behind here making this game, right? And this is not a stick at any of them because what they're doing, and from what I've heard from the game, like it feels really good and it's really smooth. And there's definitely some issues where if you had that open beta weekend, you're like, great, we've come, we've learned, we did. They skipped all that, but like the fact that you're not being communicative to your community is just that slap to the face where it's like, why am I going to give you the time of day now, right? Like, come on, man, throw me a bone and I'll throw you a bone. Everyone has problems at launch, and that can you can recover from that. But if you're not communicating with me, at that point, that's where it's like, all right, well, I'm just going to go back and turn on one of these other games because these studios might reach out to me, and it's a learning experience. You know what? They'll learn from here, and maybe they can recover, and that would be great, right? Or maybe they build their next game and they learn from here, right? But there's a lot of missteps that they've taken where if you take a look at kind of the industry's past and how you can get through this, that seem to be glossed over, right? Or forgotten because you kind of think, hey, you know what? They solved this problem. It will be good going forward. And it just shows that you can learn from the history of things of how it goes to move forward. And that wasn't shown here.
Yeah, and let me touch on a because I think you hit the nail on the head, which is the people that made the game, by all accounts, and like when you we'll talk about this in a second, but when you see the journalistic class, as I call it, like kind of speaking about this game, there's a lot of, this game is fun. It's the freshest. Let me quote Screen Rant / Game Rant. One of the freshest and most fun shooters. It's a raid shooter, right? And then Polygon, per Jeff Keighley's tweet, and I read it, like one of the best new shooters in years. Highguard freaking slaps. Mm, okay, interesting, because the creator community would basically disagree with that. And I will read like one of the quotes, and then I'll get to you, like I think the larger point. Let me read Shroud, who was paid to play the game, but his content got aggregated. It's hard to aim. It's so hard to aim. I actually might need to load up a new controller. It's insane, because he's a keyboard and mouse guy, right? Not what you want to hear when the game is being distributed on PC. You're like, I can't play this game with my keyboard and mouse. And a more honest take from Shroud, the vision is here, the FPS is not. The game's gameplay is really good. It's just poor performance. It's a little rough. Like, you know, and he's not being mean. I don't think any of those quotes are mean. Those are just legit. Like, he's playing the game, he's speaking to the community, and that's what's going to get syndicated across the internet. And honestly, those clips of Shroud saying those things get tens of millions of views across all the different platforms, have more weight than anything that Polygon puts out there. Just full stop. And but so my point that is this would have been a lot better though, and I think you nailed it. And this is good. I go the marketing misstep. If they just did a playtest alpha or beta, call it whatever you want. You put the game out there, and instead of saying game is out, it's games in alpha or beta, and people's reaction, I think, would have been very different. Like Shroud and the internet would have gone, "Oh, well, I really like the horses you get to ride. I think the map is too empty, but it feels good to play. And like I could see where this game evolves in the next 9 months. I'm now excited to take the journey of Highguard, right?" And you treat the release of the game as basically a point of time which you get, you know, early access. You put out there like, oh, you can buy the first season for a discount, so you get some cash flow if you're the company, and you treat it as a early moment, and now you're inviting the gaming community to test it and then go on the journey to make it a better game, and now you're getting them to buy into you and buy into the journey they're about to take with you. Instead, and this is where I don't think this game will survive, they came out and said it's out, this is the product, and we have a roadmap for the next year. And the people's reaction is, well, this game's not done, I'm not here to play this game, I'm out. And before I get, well, CD Projekt Red was able to fix Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk's launch was infinitely bigger than anything this game will ever hit, and they had a war chest of money from all the Witcher games, so they weren't poor. We'll call it that way. They had a war chest. They had money. They had the infrastructure to do good on that game. So that Cyberpunk now is very much different than Cyberpunk was at the beginning. And I candidly am in the Cyberpunk. I'm mad at you. I stopped playing and I'll never go back to that game because the first experience is so bad. But they did win enough people to make that game probably a better outcome than probably what they expected at the beginning. But like they were able to take people on that like let's fix it journey, much like a game I'm bullish on, Marathon. But to be fair to Marathon, what they put out there was a beta. So they have the chance to move their end date out, to take the community on the journey. And what they put out in March, I'm sure there'll be another playtest. Oh, they announced a playtest. There's another playtest beforehand. They've now invited the community on a journey, and you could already see the sentiment online. Broadly speaking, and the movement in our tool. The vibes are good. People are feeling excited about Marathon. Bungie's going to fix all the things we thought were broken. Blah 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 blah. So they are doing it right. The old school live service company Bungie, they know what to do with community, and unfortunately for Highguard, it just that was the miss. It's just the marketing miss. How do you frame the first play of your game is a critical decision. I think most shooters, I think shooters especially need to think about that, but I think it's going to go beyond that. I think one of the big trends you're going to see in the next few years is early access to games as a way to get around the game is broken at launch. Like, well, we'll just treat it as early access. Take some, some de-risk ourselves in some sort of monetization mechanism and kind of push a release out forward, because like these game companies need money. So I get why they put the game out. They need to make money so they can sustain and grow and kind of keep paying people to make the game. But I think there's going to be I think that's going to be one of the major lessons I take away from this. But I want your thoughts on everything I just said before I have one macro point on this game. We can move on.
Uh, I agree. I wanna put a pin on it, but let's hear your last thought because I want to make a intentional pivot from where you are because it kind of makes
Yeah,
sense
yeah,
with the marketing stuff.
totally. Last thing I'll just say on this, like macro level, we are shooters operate in power laws. I think every game operates in power laws, but shooters especially operate in power laws. And for those who don't know what power laws is, basically TLDR or ELI 5. It's a market that's dominated by a few people up to the top, right? And a lot of everywhere in the economy tends to kind of gravitate toward power laws. Other people call them monopolies, but this is just the natural gravitational force of just economies, especially attention economies. So if you just look at 2020, here are the top shooter games, and I'm just gonna rate, and they owned about 83% of the market. PUBG, Grenada, Free Fire, Fortnite, Call of Duty, Counter Strike, Apex, Val, CS, or Rainbow Six Siege, Destiny 2, Overwatch, Escape from Tarkov. Those games owned 80% of the market. Fast forward to 2025, here's the same list. Guardian Free Fire, Fortnite, PUBG, Valorant, Call of Duty, Counter Strike, Escape from Tarkov, Battlefield 6, Marvel Rivals, Apex Legends, Rainbow Six Siege, Arc Raiders, Overwatch 2, and Destiny 2. And they own 77% of the market. What's that tell you? Doesn't really move. Like it doesn't change. New entrants, Battlefield 6, just because it had such a big launch, broke in. I don't think they necessarily stay, but it was never meant to be a live service per se. They got work on that front. Arc Raiders, I'm pretty bullish on. I think they'll be kind of in that bubble or in that cluster. And then Rivals is a new one. They launched, they held an audience, they still pull over 100,000 concurrents on Steam every single day. I think that's a forever staying game. So that's your market. In 5 years, we have three entrants, one that will likely slip off, and two that'll be there for a while. That's it.
It's
That's
fascinating. I'm surprised Overwatch is still on there, especially with rivals jumping up. But I guess you got your players that put money in and don't want to leave, and they just play.
Yeah. If all the hate that Destiny 2 gets, and it has shrunk, it's only dropped by 0.7%.
Wait till March when Marathon launches. Everyone will swap over. I
And
doubt
that
it.
very well might be true. And as a Destiny fan, maybe we get Destiny 3. But like, yeah, it's a tough market. So trying to make a shooter breakthrough is the hardest thing to do in modern gaming, I think. It's just really, really hard because the market is so crowded and it's so calcified behind these giants. And when Apex launched, it just wasn't as busy. Like there was less competition. I think people, for example, forget like Val exists. And Apex came out before Val, but Val is there and it eats up a lot of attention. So, anyways, that's my market analysis on that one. Macro conditions are hard and tough for
You know,
shooter games.
we're going to Vegas soon, and without getting deep into it, if Marathon doesn't live up to the expectations, does Bungie go away?
No, I don't think so. I think yeah, that's an interesting one, and I don't think so. I think I would say after the summer kerfuffle, my read in the tea leaves in the press is that like the expectations are pretty low, and so I think this is actually ripe for a nice Bungie comeback story where they maybe don't get 100% of what their expectations were, but they get closer to like 75, 80%. Who knows? Maybe it is a blow the doors off huge hit, but I actually think I think what was going to already happen to Bungie's already happened with like the cuts and the consolidation within Sony Interactive. So I think those things have already more or less happened. So I think more it's just like I don't think Sony wants to kill the label that has so much brand value. And look, Destiny 2 is still one of the top shooters. Like, and nothing I listed there was a PlayStation game except for Destiny 2. Uh, and it's clear that, to be fair, it's clear that Sony Interactive is even worse at launching a shooter than Highguard because Concord only had 700 concurrents on Steam and it was delisted in 2 weeks. So if we're gonna be fair, Highguard, a better launch than Concord. Congratulations. At least you had the foresight to buy Twitch.
So let's move on. That will be considered a post-mortem on Highguard, and unless people really demand it, we will not be talking about Highguard again unless something crazy happens. Um, but when
Overguard? I'm just kidding.
you were talking about all this, right? You mentioned kind of the power of creators, which is interesting. And then we talked about Metacritic. Well, not Metacritic, but we talked about Polygon, other reviews. And I'm curious, Colin, when you're trying to judge a game, where are you typically going to go read about it?
Well, I well, honestly, because I work in the business, I get my gaming news through LinkedIn and my normal day job of reading, just kind of seeing what's happening in the analysis of just like the industry writ large. So I'm a bit of a weird one, to be quite frank. But like where I do think people get their information, so like I always index to my normie family members, right? So I have a sister-in-law who's a diehard Xbox gamer, and I always get my normie take from her because everybody else in my adulthood, in my family works in gaming. Like, I have a cousin that works in an indie studio in Singapore. Shout out to him. I don't know if he watches this, but yeah. Um, so I always ask her like what's going on, and she'll typically say, "Oh, I saw this on TikTok," or "I see this on YouTube and YouTube Shorts." So like I think that's where people more or less get their news and or their kind of information on what's going on in gaming. So that's why I like harken on the Shroud bit. So like here's like my larger thesis. Like Metacritic matters more so because it's a tale of it measures games of consequences, right? So I did like I'm gonna put some of this in my piece, but like I'm not gonna claim that Metacritic score of giving Zelda Tears of the Kingdom a 90 and like above and Breath of the Wild is the reason why those games sold well. Like I don't think Zelda needs Metacritic. I don't think any Nintendo title needs Metacritic. They'll just sell what they sell. I don't think anyone goes to Metacritic and go, "Gosh, they really didn't like the last Zelda game. Better not buy it." Didn't hit that threshold I like, which is 90 plus, right? So I discount the high end of that. I also discount the fact that Metacritic generally is not kind to games that are really, really big. I haven't looked it up, but like historically speaking, I bet they're not very kind to Call of Duties, right? And even though they're like generally the best selling game absence last year, right? Like, so there's that component to it too. That said, it doesn't. It's not that it doesn't matter. And like I working on a take on this, like a rule kind of position. I think what Metacritic tells me is it does the game in question have a marketing team and a PR team. And what do I mean by that? There are hundreds of thousands of games that come out every year. There is no world in which a journalist could actually play and review them all. So how do they pick? You ask. Well, they get picked because they're big enough to be supported by a marketing and a PR team that then goes to the publication and says, "Hey, we got this thing going on. Would love for you to review it. We're going to give you early keys, yada, yada, yada." That takes people to do that, right? It just doesn't just happen, right? So to me, getting a grading is more indicative of does this game have budget behind it to promote it, right? Because so much other stuff just doesn't. So they just put it out there and hope to the Steam gods that the algo surfaces them up as the hot new indie thing, right? But beyond that, I don't put much hard cadence into Metacritic other than saying broadly if it scores above an 80, it'll more likely do well than not do well. But like the exact score I don't think really necessarily matters. And I look at our mindshare data and it's all over the place. Like um gosh, there's a game that I'm there was a game that was beloved that came out a couple of years ago that famously didn't sell well. That was nominated for a game of the year. It was only on Epic Game Store. I cannot remember this game for the life of me right now, but it's just like it's like almost like Oscars, man. It's like, yeah, critics love movies that don't make money, and they sometimes like big games that make a lot of money, but people like lots of things, and sometimes those things get like 50 scores on Rotten Tomatoes, and I just think that gaming is in the same kind of thing. It's just that different bit. Now, to the content creator side, and I'll let you jump in why I think it matters. I don't think anyone, or I don't think millions of people are sitting down and watching Shroud's 8-hour stream on Highguard. Like that's not what's happening. But what does happen is that his 8-hour stream is content for other content creators, right? So then they will then take the community will typically slice and dice his live streams into clips. And then those clips will then get picked up by Deserto, which I think is a great publication in terms of like aggregating this stuff, or the Jake Luckies of the world who also could like find the stuff and aggregate it and like blast it on Twitter and other social platforms. I think what happens is these content creators create so much content because streams are long that they get aggregated in shorter form and they get blasted by aggregators like news aggregators like Deserto and Jake Luckies, etc. Or they just get like trended on TikTok, right? They end up on TikTok or other short form video platforms and they go viral. And that then leads into a broader sense of awareness. So when I say the creators are where the information comes from, it's not because people watch them. It's because they're exposed to them through osmosis through other means, right? They see the Shroud clip where he's like, I can't play this with my keyboard and mouse. And that has more staying power than any other moment within his 8-hour stream, right? Or the one where Tim the Tatman's friend with Ninja like goes, I can't play this game, I quit. That goes viral. That moment goes viral. And that's what gets the normies in the gaming industry. And that's what I think about like that side. It's like it's the osmosis upwards. There's just so much content that there's so much virality to be had that their odds of going viral are much higher than a professional outlet trying to create content and putting it out there. So that's my thinking on that, right? So that's why I think the internet influences things. And so when the other side says, well, they're being mean, well, mm, are they? Because to me, I watch some of the content and it's like I think they're pretty fair about it when I actually listen to the content creator. Now, are the people who then take that content creator's content and then put their own spin on it, like this game is trash, are they being mean? Maybe, but like they're being informed by the actual moment of the creator with a community saying blah 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 XXX, right? In the case of Shroud, I can't use my keyboard and mouse on this game.
Yeah, the only problem is right when that creator is getting paid to play the game, and that's it's a
Can I add
fine
to that
line.
then? And that can I add to that? And
Yeah.
that's the biggest tell for me. And it's like if a game works or not. And this is market economics. Shroud, and sorry, Shroud, man. If you and your team listen to this, I'm not trying to pick on you. I'll just say lyric, lyric got a mansion, man. He's got to pay property taxes on this thing. He's got to make a dollar, right? So he takes his money to play a game because he's a business, right? Content creators are businesses like TV networks, right? And this is just a form of ad content. So I'm not knocking it. I used to work in that space. I get it, right? But well, then the tell is if they actually like the game and their community likes the game, more importantly, they will keep playing it afterwards. How many hours did Shroud put in at Arc Raiders after he was done being paid to play Arc Raiders? A good jillion. He was so far on like saying this is the game of the year. I hate Expedition 33. How the heck is Arc Raiders not the game of the year? He was super passionate about that game. That wasn't paid. That was organic. And what keeps him honest on the organic side is if the community doesn't like what they're playing, like if they feel that the game sucks and he's just forcing it, then there's a million other choices of content creators to go. So it's pure market economics at play with like the Shrouds and the Lyrics and these other streamers. Like if they don't play games that the community enjoys engaging and watching and playing themselves, they will go to the other people that are playing the games they are playing and watching and enjoy playing themselves. So they, for better or worse, they're trapped. There's an interesting quote I think from XQC who said like something to the effect of, I miss the old days of Twitch when I could variety stream anything, but now I'm locked into these big games that I have to play. Yep, I'm 100% because the eyes want to go what they like, and then they will go where they. And if you don't do what they like, they'll just go on to the next thing, right? And that's pure economic, pure market, man. I love it. It's like yeah, attention's a market, and they are operating that market, and that's why I think that's what I look for when I look at content creators is are they actually playing the game after they're done being paid for play it, right?
And this is to the point you made in the beginning, right? You can't growth hack a community. And if you try and fake a game and force a game that you're not really interested into your community, they should backlash and they should go somewhere else, right? Because you're the person they're following because of your passion of a game, right? And if it's not there, you shouldn't be there. And it's funny, I follow a lot. I actually don't follow a lot of streamers, but I read a lot about people are trying to stream, and people try and change games all the time, and they're like, you can't, if you want to be a successful streamer, like you can't change games anymore. And it's like, that kind of sucks. Like, good for you if you're making your business like that. But like, people have been streaming The Sims 4, and like, don't get me wrong, I know people love The Sims 4, right? But like, imagine being locked into that game because that's where your audience is, and like, I don't know, maybe I'm
Yeah.
just complaining because it's not
No,
me,
you're
but
100% right. So the path of ninja, he got like famously got really good at like he was, Ninja. I remember being at the first TwitchCon. Ninja won the H1Z1 Invitational TwitchCon at the Moscone Center. It was like one floor. It was so funny. It was like just basically streamers there and Twitch employees, not like a massive outside Twitch audience. Very core. And we held a H1Z1 Invitational back when H1Z1 was pre PUBG. And he won. And it was like, oh, congrats. The guy that was really good at Halo won this like random tournament that we did. That's cool, right? And he was like a middling, mid-tier influencer creator or whatever. And then fast forward to Fortnite. He was really good at Fortnite. He was marketable. He realized kids were watching him. He kind of stopped swearing. He did the blue hair. He just became massively big. And then he just made a lot of money. And then he got paid by Mixer. And then he made even more money. And at some point in his life, he's like, meh, I don't need to do this anymore, right? I've made enough money. And so he could be trapped in the same, and they all get burned out. They call, streamer burnout's a real thing, and content creator burnout's a real thing. But like at some point when they make enough money, they kind of stale back their content creation. So he's not nearly as popular in eyeballs as he once was. He's very important. I think if there's a hall of fame of content creators, he's definitely in it. But he made so much money, it doesn't matter. And he's just like, I'll just kind of pick and choose what I do. So when someone told me that him and Tim the Tatman were not paid to play Highguard, I'm like, yeah, maybe. I definitely buy Ninja because he doesn't need to get paid to play that stuff. He will sometimes, but he doesn't need it, right? He kind of has it. He's so financially secure that he's just like, whatever, man. So, but like when that happens, when they get to that whatever man point, and they all do, next man up. There's an infinite amount of people underneath them trying to get internet famous. They're just hoping that one of these top tier people get just content of where they're at and scale back their promotion to live life. And then they take up that slot. They go next man up, right? And that's what we always felt at Twitch. That's why, if anyone who's putting out a game that's watching this, secret from a guy who used to work at Twitch and did a lot of data analytics there. The secret to Twitch is not the top tier creators, it's the middle class. The At the time it was 1200 to 500, that middle, your money goes so much further with those people. You could take this check you're going to give to the biggest creator and you can buy thousands of those people for a elongated period of time because you don't know if one of them is going to be big. And that's like, they were the heartbeat of Twitch because they generated the most eyes in aggregate, etc. But also they might be the next big thing, a la Ninja after Fortnite came out. You never know, right? It's really, you can't predict that stuff. It just happens. And then you want to be there early on and be like, we were there to support you. And they will be loyal to you to an extent, clearly, right? So yeah, that's what I think about it. So it sucks, but it's also just the cycle these creators go through, right? And
and
YouTubers are no different, right? Just to them, right? Matt Pat sold his entire business and left creating. He's like, I'm done. No more
what
game theory. No more, no, all the
it goes
theories
to
he used to
anyone at
do.
any level. There's so many people that have been let go, and again, there was more announcements with the Ubisoft this week. So anyone out there, our condolences, you rebound here. But like, you don't have to stay in the gaming world. Sometimes it's nice to go get a job where you have steady, a reliable paycheck. Then you can go back to your game fun and go purchase what you want in gaming, right? A lot of people think I want to be in gaming. I need to be in gaming because I love gaming. Well, sometimes it's best to go make your money and then fund your gaming habit, right? And you don't have to be a creator level to go have fun playing game or choosing your game. Like, you don't have to live here. You can go other places and still come back and play games at the end of the day. And I think people have to realize that you can separate these kind of lifestyles.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Amir, the nicest guy in gaming. I think he says this a lot. He's like, "Hey, I know you really want to work in gaming, but can I interest you in a career in CPG?" Like, yeah, it's like,
Yep.
and he talked. And then to be fair to him, and I'm not saying he's being it to be mean. He's like, and I've given the same advice to people too. He took a really weird. I don't want to speak for him, but I guess I will. I'll do my best. He famously has written a lot about how he took a very odd way to get into gaming, and he didn't even get into gaming until he was in his 30s, right? He wanted to work in gaming. He just did bunch of other stuff, and he ended up at gaming. I think Visa, Amazon first, and then where he's at now. Right. Much like me, I never, when I was 24 or 25, graduating my MBA, said, and now I'm going to go work in the gaming industry. That's not how my career went at all. It literally was just like, I did this, I did that, I did this, I ping ponged, and then I was in gaming, right? And then just by not even trying, I did it. And I know some people do try really hard and get into gaming, and that's awesome. But to those who are trying to get into gaming and they're like, I can't break through, just take a path, any path. Like you might just bounce around. You never really know where your career goes. And my honest advice to the younger or the people that listen to you that are just trying to break in is like, I feel there's always like three or four critical moments in one's career. At least that's what I feel like so far, where you make a choice, and hopefully when those choices come around, you'll see the one of them that's like, oh, and this is how I get into gaming finally, right? For me, it was leaving media explicitly to go join Twitch. That was my moment where I was like, yep, I'll do this now, and that's when I got really into gaming.
So, not for nothing, we'll shout out the Player Driven podcast episode with Amir. He goes into his story and his background, and we'll
Oh, did I do right by that, Greg? Did I
go with
get
that. Yeah,
close?
yeah. We it was a few months ago. He and I sat down. He spoke about it. Yeah,
Oh, was I right though? Was that basically a good summarization of
yeah,
his
definitely. I
journey?
mean, we're both
Oh,
from the
good.
Northeast, right? So, like, New York is just not known for gaming; it's known for finance, right, and other stuff. So, like, both of us, we started in the financial world because that's what you do around here. Because there's no gaming, and eventually, you make your own path. I don't know how it happens, but it happens, and there you go.
Life luck, right? Like, and all of a sudden, I'm here. Totally. Totally. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, shout out to Amir. Great guy.
Let's jump onto what I think is our final topic of the day, because we spoke about Hightail last week, uh, and not only have my videos on Hightail done pretty well, which means people care about Hightail or they're interested in the story of Hightail, but all of a sudden you started getting more communication around Riot and what may have happened. And we don't want to call anything out because I don't think anything's truly a secret here, but what have you been hearing from your side of kind of how Riot handled Hightail? How do you think things have been going? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't want to overstate or divulge anything that might be a breach of just trust, but I will say kind of broadly. I think a couple things. One thing I didn't think about that I definitely will kind of call it to myself is there was this point in time when the VC train was literally at the Riot store, and if you just came out of there saying I touched League of Legends for 3 months, they were like, here's $100 million, go build another League of Legends. So there was this talent drain that happened at Riot in the late 2010s because the VCs wanted, because they saw how good Riot was at making live service games and keeping them going and how much money they were making based on their assessments. And they wanted these people to leave to go do another one so they can cash in on it themselves. So there was this huge talent drain that occurred at Riot, which actually I'm like, yeah, that's right. I remember seeing that happen, right? And why is that important? Well, those people who left Riot in the late 2010s were also the same people that were help or probably foundational, if not like at least like tangentially involved to making games like Wild Rift, TFT, and Valorant, because those games were not made in a month; they were made over a course of years. So there was indeed brain drain. Right now, I haven't seen any of the Riot VC companies come out with a banger game, and a lot of that's probably due with COVID, et cetera, et cetera. I famously worked with a VC funded Riot X Rider adventure when I went to VENN, Video Game Entertainment News Network, and Ariel Horn, who's an amazing guy, and a bunch of people from the LCS content production team. We failed to start up, full disclosure, that crashed and burned, but in part because of the time that we're trying to launch something like that. But yeah, there was like a big brain drain from Riot. So I think that's one thing I was like, yeah, that's fair. So it's not just because they were sitting on their hands. There was just legit people that were involved making good things that just kind of leave, which happens at every organization. How can you keep? It's a salary cap, or like the kind of like what's the Phil Jackson thing in basketball where Michael Jordan is like the want to more or whatever. Basically, if you keep winning, at some point
Oh, yeah,
everyone kind of
I know what
feels
you're talking about, but yeah.
people feel like they're responsible for the win more than maybe say Michael Jordan, and so the disease of more. I think it's maybe not Phil Jackson. I think it's actually Pat Riley. Pat Riley, the disease of more, right? And I think that's very true in all walks of life, and I think it's true in just business in general. And you can see some of that coming out of like our situation at Riot, where yeah, Mark Merrill definitely and Brandon made League of Legends, but a lot of people that were involved in the early days probably felt like they were involved too, and they kind of leave. So they just leave to kind of strike it on their own to try their own thing, basically. So yeah, I think that's true. Now in terms of just what happened, I got a lot of feedback. I was like, yeah, this is the best outside breakdown of Riot's publishing efforts I've read. Like, you don't know what you don't know, so you don't know everything. in your kind of analysis. So, not to promote myself, but you did a really good job data back to kind of break down the kind of hypothesis of what you think was happening, and it it tracks from a very macro perspective. And hence why they're retreating back to IP, which I think you just see what they're doing, right? So they're less willing to experiment on things that are not directly tethered to the Riot IP, and they're more interested in trying to lean on the League of Legends IP to branch out into other genres of games. So like that's where you get like 2XKO, for example. Why that exists? Because Jinx is in it, right? And a bunch of other people from League, right? The heroes and the champions of League are also in that game, and that's their hope is to kind of build their own pie and giving the community other things to do within that universe as opposed to trying to farm out for new players, which you can agree or disagree with that strategy, but that's clear what they're trying to do now. So that would be the other kind of major input I got. I was like, yeah, okay, that's fine. It's a choice, right? There's choices you make in business and game making, and they made a choice to kind of lean in that direction. Was the opportunity cost like miss on Hightail bad? I would say yes, because I think even if Hightail doesn't, we talked about this last week, but TLDR, if Hightail, even if it falters in the next, 18 months, 2 years, doesn't matter because it showed that it could launch and you could have ported that game to China and made all your money. That will stand until that forever. You could have moved that game to China and made all the money.
They both start with H's, but they have a different tale of community and how they built their community from Highguard to Hytale, right? And Hytale has a community that stuck around with it. Just some of the more recent numbers, they've had over 10 million downloads so far. There's over
Wow.
3,000 mods available in the game now, and there have been logging queues. But I heard that they moved back to their legacy engine, which I thought we spoke about a little bit last week, and they've seen more stability with their legacy engine. So sometimes
And
keeping it simple, stupid.
And marketing to pull full circle, they called it early and they called it they're going to continue to build. It's how you position your launch. It was not that Hightail is a complete game. It's that we salvaged what we could from our time at Riot. We're going to put on a working version. We hope you, Hightail community, can come on the journey with us as we try to build this amazing thing you want. And it's that layer of transparency, honesty, and just like being like willingness to expose yourself like that that the internet feels authenticity behind it and they'll rally behind you and try to kickstart you into existence, right? That's the nugget there, right?
And you still need a game that people want to play. I think that's often the most overlooked part is like, if your game ain't fun, it's not fun. So I think at the end of the day, people often overlook that. It's not if you build it, they will come. You got to build, you got to work, you got to market, you got to listen, you got to do the whole cycle, which Hytale seems to be doing. And we'll see. Again, it's you got to dethrone Minecraft, which not impossible, but
You don't have to let's be clear, you don't have to dethrone. You have to be and Minecraft and Roblox, right? Like you don't dethrone. There's enough attention to be had to be another sandbox like environment because the market's so big. Like shooters, I rattled off earlier in the in this chat, 12 that make up 80%. And then sandbox games, you could argue there are 4 players in that world. A lot of opportunity for other people to come and share that like slice of pie.
I
So
disagree.
that
I very much disagree. I mean,
really,
I do. I just, these games thrive on community, and once you start losing that player base, right, that's where you start to disappear, and especially the Minecrafts of the world and the Robloxes of the world, because you spend your whole day in there. You watch a kid play Roblox, like that's all a kid plays. They don't play any more games anymore. You tell a kid, "Hey, have you tried Baldur's Gate 3?" and they'll look at you like, "What is
I
that? Game from ancient times?"
I well, no, my point is like I think there's more experiences for the sandbox
Yeah,
ecosystem to have more players in it. And so I will say this, none of those are owned by the CCP proxies and the gaming companies that come out of China. None of them, zero. So if one were to appear, um, it would dominate that particular market at minimum, and they would probably try to push it globally, kind of like a Delta Force like thing, where that game does very well, but does very well during APAC hours. And so, yeah, and so there is plays to be had to kind of broaden that out. And obviously, GTA 6 is probably going to expand the TAM of the sandbox ecosystem with a high fidelity version of that thing, right? If we're all to believe the wish list of what GTA 6 will be, I firmly believe it'll be there will be a GTA Online 2 or whatever they call it, and it'll be more high fidelity, more more freedom to build and because Rockstar has been doing that for over a decade, and they see what's going on with Roblox, and they see what Fortnite's trying to do, with less success, I would argue, and they see what's going on with Minecraft from a community standpoint, and they're like, "Yep, we can do this too, right? We can build on this with the next iteration of what we're trying to do." So I think that's going to open up to a lot more players who are not currently in those ecosystems because they didn't grow up with them.
Yeah, no, I think that's a valid point. I think GTA 6 is going to be wild, and I think it's going to eat up the market like we've never seen before. And good luck to the people hosting the servers. Good luck to hopefully you don't pull a Highguard. I know I said I'm not going to talk about it anymore. They won't because it's Rockstar. They got their shit together. Um,
Mm-mm.
it's going to be nuts. I mean, are you worried about a delay now that they say there's not going to be a physical launch?
No, I mean, look at the end of the day. My main point is let Rockstar cook. They don't miss, so they don't put out bad games. They have it, so I believe them when they say if they say we need more time. Like, okay, right, fair enough, right? I if they say like rumor has it that the third act wasn't good and they just blew it up and they're rebuilding it, okay, trust you guys on that. I no notes. I just don't want it to suck. I don't want it to be a Cyberpunk where you put out a incomplete game that's buggy and turns me off on the IP overall. I want you just to take your time and craft the masterpiece that I think it could be because they always make masterpieces. So
We'll have to do like a S tier ranking of Rockstar games. I'm curious on where you put table tennis.
or like bully
Bully's
man,
a
yeah.
masterpiece.
I tell you what, my favorite Grand Theft Auto is Vice City. And so that's why I'm really excited about GTA 6 because it's the new version of Vice City.
All right. On that, Colin, you want to let the people know where to find you in your patch notes.
Yeah, Substack, patch notes. I have grown to a dozens of subscribers, but I was not my main platform of distribution. So you can find me on LinkedIn where I write patch notes and distribute it first. And so I'm there, and you can follow me there. As Greg joked, I now have passed this imaginary line of 10,000, I guess. So yeah, it should be easy to find. Let's say that. So reach out to me there.
We will have, I think we're going to start posting condensed version of his patch notes. So then you lead to his bigger version of patch notes on player driven. So we'll start doing that on a more consistent basis. You can check us out at playerdriven.io or every social channel for the most part. And we'll see you next week. Thanks, Colin, man.
Oh yeah, and you'll find us at Dice in a couple weeks. All right,
Yeah.
Ralph. Right.